Hello and welcome to another episode of WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. I'm Michael Austin, a supervising reporter for the Western Journal. This is Abby Liebing. She is our brand new reporter. Brand new, and she's doing very well. And Caleb Gina, our assignment editor. We're so excited to have you guys with us today. We've got a lot of great news. We've got kind of the three great grifters.
It's going to be a big one. Nice and meaty.
It's going to be a big one. We're covering, it's just kind of like grifters, leftist grifters, and how they just can't seem to stay ahead. We got Kamala Harris, Chris Cuomo, and Jussie Smollett. You know, the Jussie Smollett trial is going on right now. Not looking so good for old Juicy Smollett, as Dave Chappelle would call him. But first, we're going to get started with Kamala Harris. And a new report from the Washington Post came out, and it's not looking good.
Okay, what has she done?
The title of the report itself basically says Kamala Harris's prospects are not looking good. The title is, let me just, probably should be better prepared when I start these things. Our producer is screaming at me. I thought I had it pulled up. Yes. So the title is, and I'm still going up.
Oh, he's still scrolling. Oh man, we got a whole article.
We should have played the Jeopardy.
I accidentally went to the
know.
bottom of the article, and now I got to find my way back. Okay, the headline. Look at this, Kamala Harris on the screen. That is perfect. That is perfect. So, a Kamala Harris staff exodus reignites questions about her leadership style and her future ambitions. So, you know, a lot of people were thinking Joe Biden, he's a dinosaur. He's going to not be able to come back for his second term.
He's so old.
Yeah, oldest president ever.
He's so old, so we're going to have to usher in Kamala Harris for the second term. Not looking so hot. Number one, because people hate her. Like, her approval rating is in the gutter.
So low. Lower than Dick Cheney's.
Lower than Dick Cheney.
Like, do you know how hard that is? Dick Cheney had 2 wars going on.
Yeah.
And he shot someone in the face with birdshot.
Yes.
It's lower than Dick
And
Cheney's.
she just keeps popping up. She just can't seem to leave us alone right now. And so basically this report, a bunch of her staffers quit all of a sudden.
Great.
Then they came out and they were telling the Washington Post exactly what had happened.
Yeah, they had like 18 different people that they said that they talked to. So
Yes.
this is not like one or two
Wait.
disgruntled people.
18 people left?
Yes.
18 people in who had been in, I think, previous roles in the
Yes.
admin.
All
Or had,
right.
They got it was
yeah.
a bunch just quit just now, and then for this story they compiled a bunch of staffers from throughout the years that she's had, and basically they just said, you know, she berates us, she's incredibly mean, she never prepares for anything. Surprise, surprise.
Sounds like Michael.
Sounds like what?
I'm just kidding.
Sounds like the guy that had to pull up a headline for 2.5 minutes at the
No,
start.
but you're right. Some of the quotes in there are brutal. Like somebody called her a soul-crushing bully.
Yeah,
You know, that's
soul
not
crushing
mincing
bull.
words. Like that's 100% addressing the thing that we talk about on the conservative
Yes.
side a lot, which is she likes to present herself in one way publicly.
Yes.
But there's a lot of scuttlebutt about what she's really like behind closed doors.
Yeah, here's some of the quotes that they got in this article. It's clear that you're not working with somebody who is willing to do the prep and the work. With Kamala, you have to put up with a constant amount of soul-destroying criticism and also her own lack of confidence. So you're constantly sort of propping up a bully, and it's not really clear why.
Ouch.
Another source said one of the things we've said in our little text groups among each other is what is the common denominator through all of this, and it's her. And they just keep going on like this. And, you know, who are the next talented people you're going to bring in and burn through and then have them pretend they're retiring for positive reasons? So it's just the criticisms are endless. And anyone that's been watching this administration so far, it's pretty clear that Kamala doesn't know what she's doing. Her approval is tanked so bad that they're actually hiding her. I mean, when's the last time we've actually seen from her? Like, what do you think, Caleb?
Completely by herself, I'd say that they deploy her extremely rarely. You know, now she's more or less tossed in the Joe Biden potpourri platter, you know, of like all the different cronies that you would expect to show up at these kind of things.
Yes.
But clearly their trust with her is immensely shaken, if not completely destroyed.
Yes.
And I mean, this is on the heels of that other piece that came out a couple weeks ago, I think, from the Washington Post that said her and Joe Biden had an immense amount of dysfunction between the two of them.
Yeah.
So the bad press keeps coming. The blows are thunderous,
Yes.
and there's nothing that she can do to mitigate the problem.
And there's been lots of theorizing that that the administration is kind of starting to want to throw her under the bus. You know, with all the problems Biden's having, they're
Nuclear
like, okay,
option.
So she's already unpopular. Maybe we could still salvage some of Biden's reputation. So let's just blame everything on her.
I just don't know what they expected because I mean, she was a set piece. I mean, from the beginning, she's just a set piece there for the photo ops. And so I'm like, what did you expect her to do when she got into office? Like,
right. And she was, I mean, ever since that Tulsi Gabbard takedown early on in the primaries, she was toast. Like she still hasn't recovered from that.
It's,
Yeah.
Just has all of her weak points on display.
Yeah.
Well, the George Floyd riots were the single biggest catalyst to her being the ultimate selection. Because Biden somewhat pigeonholed himself by saying, I'm going to pick a woman, which, you know, in my opinion, it was about time for women to get a shot anyways. That's great.
I was like, great, pick a
it's
woman.
fine.
But
pick a
then
black
all of a
woman.
sudden, after the George Floyd protests, he's like, now I have to pick a minority woman. Or otherwise, basically the leftist sensibility in the party right now will roast me if I pick anybody who's not Stacey Abrams or Kamala Harris.
Right. And it's amazing that they still went with her because if you look at the party, if you look at everybody, there are plenty of minority women that would have been at least, competent?
There were some, I mean, minority Tammy Duckworth was a good option. She's not African American, but I mean, even Stacey Abrams. I mean, no one likes her, but
All right. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves here.
I think there's an argument she could have been better than Kamala.
No,
so.
I miss Marianne Williamson and her dark psychic energy. You know, that would have been pretty comical for the ticket.
I think being better than Kamala is a pretty low bar to hurdle over.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, do you think Abby, do you think they're trying to sort of, shift kind of the blame onto her? When the border situation started happening, they were like, oh, hey, this is Kamala Harris is going to deal with the border. That is her responsibility. And then what do you know? Oh, it's not Biden's fault. It's Kamala's fault.
Well, I don't even understand because there's been reports that she kind of volunteered to take the border as her issue. And I think that there was just an assumption that there was just going to be like, it's going to be knock it right out of the park because so many people just hated Trump's border policies on the left. And then it was like, oh, actually, no, we can do worse than that. And it's Kamala.
Yeah. Do you think they're trying to use her as kind of a scapegoat in that administration?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think with her, I think they're of two minds. I think half of them feels like, you know what, it would be great if she ran in 2024. I think the other side of them, though, is saying she makes an effective patsy in the meantime.
Right.
So if she's basically able to earn her spurs over these next couple of years, then we'll marshal our resources behind her. But in the meantime, they're going to saddle her down and see basically if she'll give out. And they're like, well, I guess if she's able to drag all of this stuff for the next 3 years, maybe she can go toe-to-toe with whoever the GOP picks in 24.
It's not working out, to say the least. And there's another leftist out there who things are not working out very well for, and that would be Chris Cuomo.
Yes, Chris Cuomo, the Cuomo brothers. Just, oh my goodness, constant fodder for the media. It's just great. When one of them is sexually harassing people, the other one is too. I mean,
the other one is too, yeah.
I mean, it's just...
And then they're covering each other's backs. And
I
all
know.
This,
so, I mean, we just had CNN fire Chris Cuomo.
Which was stunning, frankly.
Which honestly, because I mean, he's number one spot.
Yeah.
$6 million salary, reportedly.
I mean, yeah, he's an absolute star for CNN. But they finally fired him. So at first they put him on a sort of probation when they were looking into everything about him helping his brother behind the scenes. It's a little sketchy.
Yeah. And
then the allegations of sexual harassment came out and they were like, okay, we're done. We're not messing with this anymore. And so he's gone. He's gone. And everyone's like, oh my goodness. And I'm like, are you really that surprised? I don't understand why anyone is really surprised that he is sexually harassing people and helping his brother behind the scenes.
Right.
I think it's one of the most predictable things that has ever happened. So I'm like, well, but I think there is a good question behind kind of the journalistic ethics of should he be helping Andrew behind the scenes? Kind of the old family idea.
Yeah, he cited that directly.
Exactly.
And specifically, what he's accused of doing is he was reaching out to all kinds of media contacts and trying to find information about the alleged victims of his brother.
Right. So he was trying to track down the victims. He was looking into Ronan Farrow's reporting to see when that was going to come out.
Yeah.
Because, Ronan Farrow, whatever he writes, everyone listens to since he exposed Harvey Weinstein.
Yes.
And so he's kind of doing all this behind the scenes. He's talking to Cuomo's aides. You know, there's the long series of texts going back and forth, and he's like rewriting press releases for his brother. And so I think it is a question kind of worth asking, like, as journalists, like, when do you cross that line from I'm a journalist to I'm acting in a different capacity, and how do you maintain journalistic neutrality?
Yeah, I mean, I think those worlds have to be completely separate. Your personal, your family, and then your professional. Right. I was really surprised when Tucker Carlson came out and he said, "Look, I'd do the same thing if I had family in trouble and I could use my resources to help them," which makes me kind of think that Tucker is preparing for something.
I don't like Tucker.
Possibly.
But let me propose this alternative to you. So if the priority was protecting his brother above his job, why doesn't he just take a leave of absence? Why doesn't he just step away from CNN?
CNN did offer him a leave
and
of
say,
absence.
hey,
oh, really?
I'm going to completely focus on this family crisis. I don't want this whole conflict of interest to be hanging over it, or me to still be soapboxing on my primetime slot about where my brother is or is not. So he could have just stepped aside, maybe not taken his salary for that short period, but he wanted to have his cake and eat it too, where he could protect his brother, behind the scenes, and he could still leverage his power and his platform to position both of them in the way that was favorable.
Yeah. I think what really gets all this, I'm like, he could have easily taken a leave of absence. And he could have just gone whole hog and gone and helped Andrew and all of his administration. Like, that would have been fine. People probably would have understood. I mean, is it going to make people like the Cuomos anymore? Probably not. But it won't damage them.
He's got plenty of money. Like, he doesn't need to go to work.
Why do you think he didn't take the leave of absence?
I have no
hard
clue.
to say.
With everything that he had coming up against him, because I mean, he had to have known about the sexual assault allegations coming up.
Yeah. Well, they came up a while ago, and then this is the same accuser that's just explaining.
There's two.
There's
another one now who's anonymous.
Okay,
so the first one was an old ABC executive who talked about him grabbing her inappropriately, but like she kind of explained that it wasn't necessarily like I am accusing him, I want to take him to court.
Right.
But now there is another one who, when he came out and was talking all about, I don't approve of sexual harassment and any of this. She's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So I don't understand why he didn't just step away from CNN for a little while.
I think these people are just breathtakingly arrogant, where they're like, I have all the power and connections and favors to insulate me from the regular rigors of my industry, of society. So when they get called on it, they're like stunned because they think that they've basically built this castle with a moat filled with alligators, and they're amazed that anybody can access them.
Right.
But the bottom line is, it's just in general in our society today, the truth comes out. You can try and sit on it, and you might be able to do that for a while. But these guys engaged, as far as we know, in some pretty horrible behavior, and looks like the chickens have come home to roost.
Well, and he was leading the charge of this PC culture. There's no such thing as forgiveness anymore. Once you've done something, you're out. So it's just chickens coming home to roost.
Yeah, right. When you hop on the Me Too bandwagon so hard, it's like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
It's like, you dug yourself a hole you can't get out of.
No one can survive that. We've all had things we've done, throughout our lives. In the day and age of social media, there are things in our past, and every single one of us has done like this. It is impossible to be perfect. But Chris Cuomo, Kamala Harris, they're nothing. Their scandals are nothing compared to the Jussie Smollett hate crime hoax. So what's new with that, Caleb?
So Abby had a great point earlier in our production meeting where she was like, didn't this happen 100 years ago?
Yeah, like, please remind us.
Remember of like
please
what
remind
actually
us of what
happened?
happened.
Yeah. So if you can bear with me, both of you and the audience, I just want to kind of, go through the timeline just very briefly to kind of just give us all a refresher.
Yeah.
So January 22nd, 2019, Smollett receives a hate mail at the Fox studio, which basically is somebody menacing him for who he is.
Right.
So Fox immediately puts security on set with Smollett, and they say, we'll also have these people escort you home if you want. Smollett, what we learned in actually the testimony today, refused the security escorting him home. So he told the studio directly, I don't want anybody following me home. It's too invasive. So January 29th of the same year, the supposed attack happens. And we all kind of remember the details where it's 2 a.m. These guys came up to him with masks on.
He was coming home from Subway at 2
They
in the
dumped
morning.
bleach on him. They threw a noose around his neck, and they yelled out "MAGA country." So,
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of stuff is horrifying, and obviously it created just this national outcry to figure out what had actually happened in this situation. So a day later, the police announced that they're going to start this investigation to look into it. But something else that we've learned in the prosecution during the trial so far is that Smollett, the day that they opened the investigation, refused access to his phone, his medical records, and his DNA.
Yeah.
So he basically stonewalled the cops from the very beginning and was like, I'm not going to help you at all.
Yeah.
Which is pretty odd, frankly.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks later, he's on Good Morning America, doubling down on his story. But 2 days after that, that's when the cops finally named the two Nigerian-born U.S. citizen trainers as the people of interest in this whole situation.
Yeah, so the two apparently white guys who yelled, "This is MAGA country," and tied a rope around his neck and poured bleach on him, they were Nigerian.
So one of the,
Something's going on.
One of the people in the trial so far, a cop who actually said that he talked to the people who talked to Smollett directly that night, said that on the night of, Smollett said one of them was white and one of them was light-skinned.
Yeah.
But he's already changed that narrative in his prosecution, saying that this was a sophisticated attack staged by these two Nigerian trainers.
Changing the narrative is always a good look.
So there's already a lot of like contradictions that are being exposed, but we also know very shortly thereafter in March, Smollett was indicted by the police for falsifying a report, but then the indictment was eviscerated.
Yes.
And they were like, well, actually, we're going to wash our hands of it and you can ride off into the sunset and it's all good.
Never mind.
Eviscerated by our best friend in Chicago, Kim Foxx. For those of you that don't know, the reason Chicago is such a just a hellscape right now is because prosecutors like Kim Foxx refuse to hold criminals responsible. They let people out on no bail. It's crazy up there, and it's all Kim Foxx's fault. And she thought, you know what? I'm going to cover for my boy Juicy Smollett. Didn't work out too well for her.
Yeah, so June of, pardon me here, let me get my notes right. So June of 2019, the judge appoints, or actually no, it's 2020. So a little bit later, no, my apologies, guys.
You're good.
June of 2019, the local police reopened the investigation into Smollett. And then in February of 2020, he's indicted again on 6 counts of disorderly conduct for the same stuff he was charged with the first time round.
Yeah.
So that gets us in our current situation where he's on trial.
Yeah.
So some of the juicy stuff that's come out of the trial so far, I mean, what are your guys' favorite tidbits that you've seen?
Well, I think the favorite of mine is that they have security cam footage of him driving the two Nigerian brothers around the intersection where the alleged crime ended up taking place. So basically they were like warming up. They were doing kind of a rehearsal before the actual they staged the event, which is hilarious. That's the way the prosecutor described it, at least.
It kills me. I mean, in the broad spectrum of things, I just can't believe that he didn't bother to get different people to do this.
Right.
I'm just like,
right.
You had access to plenty of white people, probably some racist white people who would have happily done it. But
I assume he didn't think they would trace it back to those guys. But yeah, it was an odd choice.
I mean, just starting all the way back from the beginning, I'm like, why would you make that choice?
Yeah. One of the best little things that's come out that we've got a piece on Western Journal about is, so he picked this spot specifically. He did these rehearsals.
Yes.
Because he thought the area that he was going to have this attack staged, allegedly, was on camera.
Yeah.
But when the police actually did their investigating and pulled the footage of the camera that he thought was filming what had happened, they realized that the camera was pointed the wrong way. So they go to Smollett the next day and they're like, hey, actually, we don't have any footage of this because we pulled the footage and it's pointed the wrong way. And they've said in the trial that he became like very upset when he was told that it wasn't captured.
Wait a minute, I made sure there was a camera there. Wait, never mind.
Oh, it's pointed the wrong way. Oh,
darn it.
Yeah.
Nuts.
Yeah, no, it is pretty, and it's unbelievable that he's now saying, oh, these guys, these MAGA Nigerians just happened to run into me, even though he is acquaintances with them. He knew them from working on Empire.
Oh, it's more than that, man. Like, we've had stuff come out today where Smollett has said that he was romantically involved with one of the two of them. So he's essentially intimating, in my mind, that they're jilted lovers and these guys are coming after him to ruin his career.
And throughout all of this, and on the trial, I believe today, on the stand today during the trial, he's been pretty open about the fact, hey, I'm gay. That's why all this happened. I'm a victim here because I'm gay, obviously, right?
Because if nothing else can save him, his homosexuality can. That's the moral of the story. That's what he wants. That's what he wants it to be.
Well, It's funny. I've actually looked. I'm working on a story right now on kind of the psychology of hate crime hoaxers and like why they do the things that they do. And Wilfred Riley, this political scientist at, I believe, Kentucky State University, he wrote the book on this, and he's studied it extensively, and he looked through all these hate crime hoax cases. And basically what he found out is that when someone stages a hate crime hoax like this, they know they're lying, but they believe that their lie is speaking to a larger truth. Oh, and so that's what makes it okay. Because, I'm actually not lying. I'm actually telling the truth because this is the larger truth that we need to tell everyone.
So the lie is the vehicle in which you tell the truth.
The lie,
so to speak.
That's a perfect description of that. Yeah. So that's the people like Smollett, the people that are there's still a lot of people have abandoned him because it's pretty clear that he faked this, but the people that are still behind him, and this is the same psychology behind the people that wanted to make sure Rittenhouse was convicted, even though they knew he was probably not guilty of all those charges, is because they believe, okay, this speaks to a larger truth. We need to make sure we get a win for the larger truth, even if this specific case isn't a good example of that.
So it doesn't have to be their truth individually. It's just the truth.
Exactly. Yeah. What do you think about that?
I think that's something where more or less on their side, they think that the ends justify the means.
Oh, yeah.
So when it comes to, defacing the monuments in D.C. in the aftermath of George Floyd,
yes,
to address America's, permanent systemic racism, it's okay to write F white people where Martin Luther King gave the I Have a Dream speech.
Well, yeah, ends justify the means is just baked into the sort of progressive ideology that we're dealing with right now. I know the term Marxist is very overused at this point, but that's what Marx believed, that, the end would justify the means. Violence could be necessary if it could lead to socialist utopia, whatever that is.
Well, yeah. And I mean, if you just justify everything through that, then you automatically throw out objective truth.
Yeah.
And that's the world we live in. That's why things like this happen, is because there is no conception of objective truth. Everything is subjectified.
Yeah.
So you're like, well, what else would you expect?
Yeah, truth has been replaced with the narrative.
Yeah.
And the narrative is completely subject generally to whatever Don Lemon and Jeff Bezos and a
Chris
couple
Cuomo.
other people and Chris Cuomo have decided for the rest of us.
Kamala Harris probably gets to weigh in on what that.
And they're like, if you're outside the narrative, like
there they are.
There they are. Having a time.
Did you have a Jussie Smollett one? I didn't catch that. If you did, I'd love to see all three if there is a third one. Probably not.
The trio.
Well, he'll pop up if they have one.
we got to give him something for next time.
Yeah.
So you'll have to come back.
We'll
and
work
see
on
all
that for next time.
Just keep on a smell it.
Yeah, I just think in general, this is the kind of thing where, like you mentioned, it's just this war on truth.
Yeah.
And we're constantly on this side denigrated for asking questions, being skeptical, and subjecting information to continual tests. Because a lot of the time we're told something and it's just not true. So that's why on our side, we're inherently always doing this reviewing process. And I think for the most part on the left, they just take what's being given to them. And when they're told that these MAGA muggers jumped Smollett, they're like, of course he did. Because that's what Maxine Waters and Pelosi and Schumer and all these people have been pumping into their head
right,
ceaselessly.
Yeah, of course he got mugged by, Trump-loving MAGA guys. Of course Kyle Rittenhouse was a white supremacist terrorist. Otherwise, why would he show up at a peaceful Black Lives Matter protest? I mean, the narrative, they will do anything. They will destroy the lives of anybody and everybody that gets in the way of their narrative.
Mm-hmm.
So,
including their own.
Yeah. That's
true.
Chris
They
Cuomo.
got to preserve the narrative. They
Yeah.
got to preserve anything that has to do with the identity of the people behind the narrative. So,
yeah. Well, that was a pretty short one today, but I think we're about out of all the stuff we have for you guys today. Thank you so much for joining us on WJ Live. If you want to support us, please consider subscribing to the Western Journal at westernjournal.com/join. Almost got that URL wrong. That would have been disastrous. I would have been fired on the spot, but I corrected myself. If you join the Western Journal, that's just really going to help us subvert all these big tech companies. Facebook doesn't want you to see our posts. Twitter doesn't want you to see them. Google doesn't want you to see them. But if you join the Western Journal, you can, and if you subscribe to our newsletters and subscribe to our email, you can get all that stuff straight to you. We don't have to rely on Facebook. We don't have to rely on Twitter. If you want to help us out, though, you can also follow us at all of those places. And if you want to, and you can also follow WJ Live at youtube.com/WJ Live. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you like all the videos, and make sure you hit the bell to receive notifications. And we're actually on Rumble now as well, so make sure to head over to Rumble. That's just another way we can kind of subvert the big tech overlords over at YouTube.
Help us stick it to big tech. Come on.
Power to the people, stick it to the man.
None of these people, if we say anything, and I have to be careful about what I say here, otherwise this video will be in dire jeopardy. But there are certain truths about biological reality that they are just not going to let us tell you. And we're going to keep telling you it anyway, but every time we do, it's a cost. And so, if you guys could support us, if you guys believe in the work we're doing, please help us out. And that's about all we have for you guys today. Thank you so much for joining us, and see you next time.